Bonjour. Après plusieurs jours d'interruption, nous allons faire un Kitchen Talk numéro 9 aujourd'hui. Alors le thème du jour, c'est le pasteur. Comment doit être un pasteur de l'Église selon la Bible? Bon, je ne prétends pas me poser en donneuse de leçons, hein. Donc, nous allons lire ce que d'autres ont écrit sur le sujet en se basant sur la Bible. Alors, au hasard sur Internet, je suis tombée sur un site en anglais qui s'appelle www.acts29.com. Donc, Acts comme Actes des Apôtres, ACTS29.com. Alors, j'ai quand même vérifié qui ils sont. Donc, ils sont de la tendance évangélique, là, courante. Pas église évangélique du Cameroun, mais bon, les églises évangéliques occidentales qui s'apparentent aux églises pentecôtistes et autres. Donc, le texte est en anglais. Faites-le vous traduire si vous ne comprenez pas. Bon, moi, j'ai pas le matériel pour faire la traduction. Nous avons déjà évoqué ça dans un précédent Kitchen Talk. Alors, le titre, Biblical Qualifications for a Pastor, Church Planting, by January the 6th, 2015. The Bible specifically speaks about the qualifications for those who will lead a congregation of people. These qualifications have been the same for almost 2,000 years. Jesus is the perfect fulfillment of these qualifications as the senior pastor of the church. Above reproach. Titus 1 verse 6, 7 and 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. This is the overarching, summarizing characteristic. You will find similar but not identical lists in the 1 Timothy and Titus. Living a life above reproach is the first requirement in both lists, and Titus repeats it. The other items on the list explain what above reproach means. If we peruse the two lists, as well as 1 Peter, we find 17 qualifications of an elder who is above reproach. 1. A pastor must be devoted to his wife. One woman man. Titus 1 verse 6. 1 Timothy 3 verse 2. The pastor's marriage illustrates Christ's love for his church. His bride, Ephesians 5 verse 22. A pastor must love his wife exclusively with his mind, will and emotions, and not just his body. Number 2. A pastor's children must be in submission, though not perfect. Titus chapter 1 verse 6, 1 Timothy chapter 3 verses 4 to 5. If a man does not know how to manage his own family, he will not know how to take care of God's church. The first flock for a pastor in his own family as pastor dad. The first flock for a pastor is his own family as pastor dad. A pastor's qualification for the church starts in his home management as he leads them up in the discipline and admonition of the Lord. Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4. Number 3. A pastor is a faithful steward. Titus 1 verse 7. Here the term used is overseer, Greek episkopos. It is not another office, but a functional title of the elder. It is what he does. He is a steward, a manager of God's resources and Jesus' flock. He takes responsibility, but not ownership. A pastor must be humble. Number 4. A pastor must be humble, not arrogant. Titus chapter 1 verse 7. A pastor must constantly demonstrate the gospel by admitting when he is wrong and assuming responsibility and restoring relationships. Number 5. A pastor must be gentle, not quick-tempered. Titus chapter 1 verse 7 and 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 3. No man will be of any use in the kingdom that is quick-tempered. The difference between how Jesus demonstrated anger is that he was angry at the abuse of others in the name of religion and the dishonoring of God. We get angry at how it affects us. Number 6. A pastor must be sober, not a drunkard. Titus chapter 1 verse 7 and 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 3. This is not just overindulgence in alcohol, but is idiomatic for any behavior that fuels addictive responses. Number 7. A pastor must be peaceful, not violent. Titus chapter 1 verse 7. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 3. A pastor is prone to inflict violence through his words. He is to be a peacemaker. Number 8. A pastor must have financial integrity, not greedy for gain. Titus chapter 1 verse 7, 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 3, 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 3. A pastor is to be upright in his financial dealings and not accused of pursuing money over the kingdom of God. Number 9. A pastor must be hospitable. Titus chapter 1 verse 8, 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. A pastor's home is to be open for others to enjoy. A pastor's home is not heaven on earth, but rather a place of ministry. Number 10. A pastor must be a lover of good. Titus chapter 1 verse 8. A pastor genuinely loves what is good. He does not just think he should love it. Number 11. A pastor must be self-controlled. Titus chapter 1 verse 8, 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. Self-control is a characterization of every area of a pastor's life. Diet, time, mouth, exercise, relationships, sex, and money. Number 12. A pastor must be upright. Titus chapter 1 verse 8. He has integrity in his relationships and in how he treats others. Number 13. A pastor must be holy. Titus chapter 1 verse 8. His life is devoted wholeheartedly to Jesus, externally and internally. Number 14. A pastor must be able to teach. Titus chapter 1 verse 9, 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2. All of the other qualifications are character qualities. This is the only ability-based requirement. He is to be able to teach sound doctrine, not just be able to communicate in an excellent manner. His teaching can be to 1 or 2 or 20 or 100 or to 1,000. His teaching can be to 1 or 2 to 20 to 100 and to 1,000. Most of the churches in Crete were house churches. The elders were to defend the faith once delivered to the saints against the numerous false teachers that arose. A pastor must be spiritually mature. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 6. Positions of authority without spiritual maturity lead to the trap of pride. When pride grows in a man, sin abounds. Number 16. A pastor must be respectable. 1 Timothy chapter 3 verse 7. That does not mean that everyone must like him or even appreciate him. It means that there is no credible witness to an ongoing sinful behavior. Number 17. A pastor must be an example to the flock. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 3. Elders are examples of biblical expressions sexually, time management, marriage, parenting, worship, relationships, and any other way. A pastor should be someone your sons could pattern their life after, and the kind of man your daughter should marry. Conclusion. What would you do if an elder violates one of these requirements? 1 Timothy chapter 5 verses 19 to 20. 1 Timothy chapter 5 verses 19 to 20 warns us not to accuse an elder flippantly. Matthew chapter 18 verses 15 to 18 gives us the steps. Go to the elder alone. 2. If still unsatisfied, go with another person. And 3. If still unsatisfied, let the greater eldership know. If accusations are verified and the elder remains unrepentant, rebuking that elder before all is the next biblical step. Ok, ça c'est la fin de notre message sur le pasteur. Nous reviendrons sur les anciens d'église dans un prochain message, dans un prochain Kitchen Talk. Je vous remercie.